Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 267. My opponent kicked off with e4 and I played c5, the Sicilian defense. And now we go down the main line of the open Sicilian with d4. And at this point, after the knights come out, I have a choice of whether to go into the knight or Skevening in the classical or the dragon, and I chose the dragon variation. So often leads to a very sharp play, and we get something along those lines. My opponent chooses the sharpest response, bishop e3. This sets up the Yugoslav attack, which we'll see the setup here in a minute. Castling, yeah, queen d2. So this is the main idea, is to support the bishop this way, to castle queenside, and to launch a pawn storm. So very, very simple and direct play for white, and leads to a pretty strong attack. So black has to be careful. But black can play this. It's not losing by any means, but just got to be tricky. And now I skipped over a moment here. Right here, actually, white has a choice. He can play bishop c4. Puts the bishop on a good diagonal and clamps down on the move d5. After castles, black here, if you look at the choices, the top move here for black is actually to play d5, and that's actually a pawn sack in some lines, but it's thought to give black equal chances. I just was trying for something different here. So I started this knight maneuver, knight e5 to c4, but I think I started it prematurely. I should really prepare it by playing bishop to d7 and rook to c8, and then knight e4 to c5. Would be a more normal way to play. So I put the knight here immediately, and it's on a square where it really has nowhere to go. It can't go to c5 until I get a rook on the c file, and it can't go anywhere over on the queen side, although it does immediately put some pressure on this pawn on f3, but that pawn is defended by the knight. So anyway, the game continues from here, but this was not the most precise move. My opponent plays bishop e2. It's defending that pawn anyway. He's planning to push g4, g5, attack on the king side here, and maybe he's worried that this knight will have to move at some point or get traded, and then this pawn might get loose. But at this point, the bishop is not really doing a whole lot there, although you see it has a role later in the game, so maybe it's not a bad move. Bishop d7, he starts with this g4 idea. I play my rook to c8, supporting my idea of knight to c5. Very common plan in these Sicilians. You want to try and reduce some of the attacking force, and by putting a knight on this square, it's a very annoying piece, and white is usually compelled to trade it off. Okay, but it's white's turn to move, and he can push ahead with g5, and then f4. So he's gained a lot of space, but he's kicked my knight to where it wants to go, and the position is still about even, still some edge for white. But white really needs to take the knight at this point. And even though I didn't punish this move, queen d3 is actually a big mistake. And it's pretty funny. I was a bit surprised to discover this, but there's a lot going on in this position. Black, because of this move knight to h5, this diagonal has been opened up for the black bishop. His rook is well placed on the c file, and a move like queen b6, which the engine is recommending here, threatens immediate checkmate on b2. The king has nowhere to run because the knight is guarding this square. So this knight, you can see, is an extremely dangerous piece. And with the queen on d3, he no longer has the option of taking the knight. So actually, the best move, according to the engine, is to take the knight with the queen. And I guess you get two pieces for the queen, but this is clearly better for black. The other try, b3, just simply defending, back up. The other try is b3, just defending against the checkmate. And then what can happen here? I guess the problem with b3 is that it's loosened this defense of the knight on c3, so that's hanging in some of these variations. So after knight takes e3, queen takes e3, the queen is overloaded. The queen is defending the knight on c3, and it's also defending the pawn on f4, and black can just take that pawn, and this is just completely winning for for black. Black's pieces are all coming forward into the game, and he's won a pawn as well. So white's in big trouble here. Okay, so anyway, I didn't spot that during the game, and I played knight e3. Still with some advantage to black. But what's funny is that after queen a5, I once again I have to play knight f4 to take advantage of this tactic of the overloaded queen. Queen is defending the knight. Actually, let's check this out. I'm not sure why this is so good. If the queen takes the knight here, then bishop takes. It's just a trade. Oh, and then e5, forking the queen and the rook. Okay, that's a cool tactic. So you give up the knight, but you win a pawn, and then you win a rook. Queen h4, rook takes c3. Well, e takes d4 is also playable too. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty subtle. So you sack the knight here with the idea of exchanging on d5 and then playing e4 with the check. It's not too hard. Once you see it, this idea of e5 with a fork after an exchange on f4, that's an idea you can find. Okay, but I didn't find it. I played queen a5, and now it's back to a position where white has the advantage, and plays a few good moves here, attacking, disrupting my king side by exchanging off that knight. And rook c7 was an inaccurate move. It looks like my best defense here is to play e5, try and counter-strike in the center, or maybe rook f to e8, okay, or rook to c4. Rook to c4 is an interesting idea, putting pressure on this knight in the center. Okay, I played rook to c7 with the idea of doubling. You know, I still want to sack the exchange here and invade on the king side. My opponent plays f5, which is a good move, but not maybe the top move. I double here, and he plays g6. Okay, so g6 is the mistake here, where eventually, I knew eventually white got into trouble somewhere. So let's back up. So the best way to proceed with the attack is to come forward with the knight, knight d5, so it's no longer a target here, and it's attacking the e-pawn, which is not protected right now, or to play rook to d3, okay, bringing the rook up where maybe it can come over and attack on the king side. Couple ideas for white. Okay, instead, I mean, this is kind of a logical looking move, but I can just take that pawn, and now he can get pressure against g6, but I am a pawn up here. He plays rook h to g1 immediately, and and then I go for the exchange sack here. So something you're always looking for when you're playing the Sicilian, when you have this pressure on the c5. Often it's a good idea to give up your rook for a knight over here and just get an attack going on the king side. So b takes c3, and now the rook takes c3. Good, I played that. He went queen g5, and now I was a little worried about the pressure on the g file, and I traded queens. But it turns out the strongest move here, which I considered for a while, was part of my plan, I just couldn't see it all the way through, is queen takes a3. So let's take a look at this. So king d2 is the best way to run. It could go there or to b1. And then the follow-up is rook to h3. I'm not sure why this is so strong. I guess I'm just hitting this pawn. How about if queen takes? I haven't even defended the g-file, right? So how about if queen takes here? Then queen e3. Okay, this is the idea. This is a checkmate. That's a nice pattern. These two pieces are blocking the king's escape. Okay, so rook to h3 is a strong move because it threatens checkmate of queen e3 if this queen moves. So now the queen is tied down. Knight to b3, just blocking this. And then rook takes h2 check. That's funny. King goes to e3, so I can chase his king all around, and all this time I haven't even bothered to defend my pawn on g6. Just continuing to make strong moves here. Queen here, now threatening on c2. And it looks like it's impossible to stop the threats at this point. Rook to g2, rook takes, queen takes, and now bishop to h6 check. And the attack rages on, and I'm a couple pawns up at this point. Pretty interesting. So if you can keep your opponent busy with your own threats, he doesn't have time to realize his threats. That's a way to play it. Okay, I didn't see that, and I took. Well, I saw that I could take with check. I just didn't see the continuation. So there's an exchange of queens, and now I'm feeling a little more comfortable. I've consolidated my extra pawn. I have a pair of bishops and an active rook. I'm still down the exchange, but I think I have the advantage here, and the chess engine confirms that. So the game continues. Right here, he's got a tactic that he missed, and actually I let it sit for a while, but his rook is on this diagonal with his king. So right here he needs to do something about that instead of knight to b3. So if he wants to stay in the game, rook to g3 is the way to play on. And just retreating my rook, keeping it, is probably the best thing. Rook to c4, putting pressure on his knight. Okay, and the game would continue. Anyway, after knight b3, he's finally lost. And I first attack this rook over here, because I actually didn't spot this open diagonal, this threat on the diagonal. But then I exchanged rooks. I spotted it by this time and played my bishop here. So he defends his rook, but now I'm just material up. It's a very simple endgame win at this point. And so let's just go through the moves. I advance the pawn, and it's a threat which just can't be stopped. If he were to bring his king over to stop the pawn, then I have pawns on the other side of the board as well that I can start advancing. So he's just kind of caught here. Then the way it was played, his king couldn't decide which side of the board to run to, so he kind of wasted some moves there. And now I can just grab this pawn, because no matter how he takes back, well, he's in check, so he has to move the king out of the way, and then I'm going to queen my h-pawn, and if he takes the knight, which he did, and if he takes the bishop with the knight, then I queen, and he doesn't have anything to take it with. So he resigned at this point, and that's how it ended. Anyway, a pretty interesting tactical game in the Sicilian Dragon. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you again soon. Bye.